Most of you have probably heard of the highly addictive painkiller OxyContin, considering it's the top-selling branded drug in its category, ranking in over $1 billion last year. With a growing number of addicts, we have to ask, who takes responsibility when we get hooked on painkillers? The addicts, the doctors prescribing the drugs, the pharmaceutical companies? How many inadvertent addicts and deaths is this drug responsible for? Well, joining us today to talk about it in our Google Hangout are Dr. Laura Brown, a pain management physician and founder of WakeUpNow.org in San Diego, California; Dr. Gregory Smith, the producer of a film American Addict in Fresno, California; Cindy Harney, a mother in Sarasota, Florida; and on the phone we have Frank Morris, a recovered addict in Brooklyn, New York.
I had been addicted to drugs in one way or another, not really knowing that I was addicted. I was a major pot and drinker in high school and in college. I did more of that and messed around with other drugs. And I was having chronic migraines, which I've now learned is because of the excess stuff in my system. And a friend had OxyContin. And for me, the issue wasn't so much as taking it. I mean, taking it, it worked. And when it worked, it wasn't addictive. The problem for me was that the company produced it in a way where I could actually freebase the pill or crush it up and inject it. And I experimented with that. And the effect just immediately flipped the light switch in my brain. And I was hooked. I couldn't stop. How
different is, I mean, you know, we look at this term, let's get to the bottom of why it's called that and how it compares to heroin. Are the components similar? Is it similarly addictive?
Well, you know, the term really came from the part of the country that the OxyContin was being spread to, being brought up from states like Florida before those states were more regulated.
And Kentucky being really the worst state, right, in terms of abuse.
Yeah, people were really going on vacation to places like Florida and other states to get the drugs and then come back and sell them. So it was a huge problem. But, you know, I think OxyContin is particularly addictive. I mean, all narcotics share similar properties, but for me, and I do quite a few, I have a certain type of protocol I do for patients with these problems. I think OxyContin is more difficult in many ways to get people off of than heroin.
Obviously, this drug is being overprescribed, but when you have pharmaceutical companies sort of standing behind those numbers saying, listen, our drug is really helping people, how much responsibility and accountability should we be looking at with them?
I think these pharmaceutical companies deserve to have a lot of accountability. There was a lot of money put into marketing these very strong pain pills for years and years. Unfortunately, a lot of the physicians bought into the marketing and started prescribing a lot more liberally. We went through a period where, from 2000 to 2010, that we actually had a decade of pain, where physicians were encouraged to prescribe opioids for non-cancer pain for patients. And the whole culture of pain management shifted during that decade. And that's the same decade we've seen these increases in deaths related to prescription drugs, specifically prescription pain medicines.
My son died in '06 from a prescription drug overdose. It was OxyContin and Xanax.
An OxyContin and Xanax combination.
Yes. And in our own community, we have had 109 deaths that year. My question is, why is the manufacturer not held accountable? Any other company, just because they have lobbyists, I'm not sure how come we're not outraged.
What we realize is that in the face of this growing epidemic, the only real solution, in my opinion, is prevention. And I think we need to prevent first-time use, because once somebody uses these powerful drugs, it's hard for them to stop. I also believe very strongly that we have to start with young people. We need to start with teens. We need to start with teens for multiple reasons. One, because they're being faced with the opportunities to use these drugs at very young ages. But two, our research now shows that the teen brain is still developing until the age of 25. And when these kids are exposed to these powerful chemicals at such young ages, they have an 8 times greater risk of becoming addicts.
You know, 80%, we're 5% of the world's population. But we use 80% of the world's prescription narcotics, and this is not by happenstance. I mean, there is a collective effort in this country when it comes from the media, the big pharmaceutical companies, political things of that nature, all sort of gelling together. Not just addictive drugs. I'm talking about antidepressants and pills for headaches and sleeping. I mean, we have become a society that tries to solve problems with pills.